Hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you so much for being here with us today. My name is Dr. Gabby Burlacu, and I'm the Senior Research Manager of the Upwork Research Institute. I'm so excited to be with you today to talk about a question that is top of mind for all of us, which is what is going on with workforce skills in the age of AI? A little bit later on, I'll be joined by two people who are so well positioned to have this conversation and share their experiences. Alina Jesien, who is the Senior Director of Human Resources at Ergeon, and John D. Saunders, who is the founder and creative director of 54 Digital. And they're going to share their perspectives from the people and HR side and the founder and business side as they really grapple with the same question. How do we get the skills we need? And what skills do we even need anymore as AI advances? If we go to the next slide, I can share a little bit about what you can expect from us today. So first, I'll be sharing some insights from the Upwork Research Institute's latest research report, In Demand Skills 2026, that is really well positioned to help elevate our conversation on this topic. You'll also hear from our wonderful panelists and kind of how they've been putting into practice some of the things that we learned in the research. And you will have an opportunity to ask your own questions and engage with our panelists and with me. But here's what we really want from you. We want this to be participative. We want this to be a dialogue and a discussion. So we really want you engaging. Use the chat functionality, use the Q&A functionality, and participate in our polls because we want to learn from you just as much as you're learning from us. So if that sounds good to you, please stick around. We've got a great hour for you. And let's start with learning something from you. If we go to the next slide, we've got a couple of poll questions for you where we really want to understand how you're thinking about skills in your organization. Let's get that first poll going. As you think about 2026, what are the skill sets that you're most prioritizing? What are you really thinking about as you're thinking about the skills of your people? And we'll give everybody just a couple of minutes to respond. Are you maybe focusing on core skills? Are you starting to think about how you're integrating AI? Are you thinking about uniquely human skills, like people that are creative or adaptable? Are you really thinking about how you're building the leadership skills of the future? Or are you not really sure? There's no wrong answers. Let us know. All right. And as we see the answers coming in, we've got two pretty strong contenders. 50% of you saying AI-enabled skills applied to existing roles is primarily where you're focusing for this year. 41% of you say it's core role expertise. The same jobs that existed before, you need skilled people performing them today. We've got one more question for you before we share the research. What are the skill gaps that you see emerging in your organization? Where are you kind of worried as you look out to 2026? Like, we're going to need to find these skills. And we'll give people just a couple minutes to respond. All right, are we ready to see those results? Okay, it looks like AI is top of mind for you all as you think about skill gaps in your organization. 56% said a skill gap that's emerging is applying AI tools effectively within existing roles. 30% said leadership and decision making in an AI enabled environment is somewhere you really need to focus in 2026. Adaptability and learning new tools quickly, 36% of you say that's a place that we're having serious gaps emerging. And 28% say that advanced role-specific expertise and creative problem solving and innovation are emerging as significant gaps in your workforce. This is a fantastic match to what we're seeing in the research. And today we're going to talk a little bit about what are some good practices for considering how you're going to fill those gaps in 2026. So to share a little bit about our in-demand skills research, if we go to the next slide, this is a research study that the Upwork Research Institute conducted. And in order to get this data, we surveyed over 1,000 business leaders. And we also looked at real platform data on the Upwork platform to understand where are business leaders actually hiring human talent. Because in the age of AI, a big question is what is the role of humans in the future of work? And so we really sought to understand from the Upwork platform, where are people hiring and along what skills? And we looked at 6 major categories of work. If we go to the next slide, one of the key things that we learned, the reason that we did this research, and one of the key things that we learned is essentially there's so much rhetoric out there around what AI is doing to work and the impact that AI is having on workforce skills. And on one end of that spectrum, we know that change is coming. So the World Economic Forum estimates that about 39% of worker skills are going to be transformed or redundant because of AI in the next 4 years. But on the other end of the spectrum, we see a much scarier message out in market, right? Over half of global business leaders expect AI to actually eliminate jobs, and we see those headlines every day. And while research largely has shown that AI-related layoffs is somewhat overblown, there's a very real impact on entry-level roles, where we're seeing a notable decline in the entry-level opportunities available to early career talent. Microsoft, in particular, released research that identified 40 roles that are particularly susceptible to AI. So, the idea being that if you are a teacher or an editor or a consultant, the message is watch out, AI is coming to take your job. And so, we really wanted to ground our research in real market data and understand what human talent companies are actually seeking to provide some clarity and some reality check in this message. And so, what we learned, if we go to the next slide, is one major fundamental thing about how business leaders are approaching their work models overall. Specifically, 77% of business leaders said AI is increasing their need for fractional or freelance or independent talent. And there are a number of reasons why this is, but essentially, we're seeing a real pivot in how leaders are thinking about hiring talent and accessing skills. And for that reason, we realized that the Upwork platform was going to be a great source of data to understand where business leaders are focusing their hiring efforts and where demand is for human skills, since so many leaders are starting to think this way about how they access those human skills. So I'm going to share 3 main things from the report, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists to talk a little bit about how these things are happening in their businesses and on the ground. But the first thing I'll share, if we go to the next slide, you will see a chart that has a ton of text, and I don't expect you to read all this text. But one thing that I think is very noteworthy here is that as we looked at the skills that are the most in demand on the Upwork platform by sheer hiring volume, we see very, very little change in the most in demand skills versus last year and even the year before that. So think about that for a moment. As AI capabilities have become so advanced and they have so rapidly evolved, we're still seeing that demand for human skills remains somewhat the same across somewhat of the same skills. And if you look at this list, it's really interesting. You see things like logo design, illustration, social media marketing. These are things that we've been told we have at our fingertips with AI tools, that we can achieve these things in seconds. And yet, we see that business leaders are still coming to the Upwork platform at scale to access human talent in these areas. So, insight number 1 from this report is that AI is certainly changing things, but it is not actually diminishing the demand for human talent skilled in these things, because business leaders recognize AI looks like it can do it alone, but it really can't. And if you want quality, you've got to have a human in the loop. So, we're seeing a lot of evidence of that in our data. On the next slide, We also looked at the skills that are fastest growing in demand. So maybe by sheer volume, this isn't where business leaders are coming to Upwork to hire the most, but this is the fastest growth in demand year over year. And here's where we really saw a lot of evidence of AI. But if you take a look at the AI skills that are growing in demand, you start to see a really interesting pattern. Things like AI video generation and editing, AI image generation and editing, generative AI modeling, AI integration. These are AI skill sets that are not broad AI. They are the application of AI tools toward existing domains. So this reflects companies saying, I want to make a video, but I want somebody that can use AI tools plus their domain expertise in making videos to be able to deliver something really special and really differentiated. And so that's the second key insight from this research is that AI skills are growing in demand, but it's applied AI skills. It's that domain expertise plus the propensity to apply AI tools toward doing things differently. And the final insight from this research that I will share that's on the next slide is business leaders continue to recognize and highly value the role of uniquely human skill sets in the workforce of the future. So, one of the predominant messages out in marketing is that business leaders, they just want AI, they just want cheap, they don't care about the human talent that works at their organizations. And that's really not what we're seeing in the data. We found that 1 in 2 business leaders are actually saying they would pay a premium if they could work with talent that they knew was going to be innovative and creative in solving problems. When we asked business leaders, what are the workforce skill sets that are becoming increasingly more important as they integrate AI, the top skill identified was not AI fluency or I want them to build AI tools. It was, I know that people need to be adaptable and agile in how they learn. And also quite highly ranked was I need people that are reliable, that do what they say they're going to do. And I need people who are creative problem solvers. So business leaders recognize that in the age of AI, it's not just AI skill sets, right? It's humans that can bring AI tools and their existing expertise in their domains to really get things done in a new way. And that suggests to us that AI is not taking jobs or replacing people, but rather it's recomposing how work gets done and shifting the skills landscape of what we need from our people. And so that's really interesting and exciting and somewhat intimidating. And so today I am joined by 2 wonderful panelists who A, recognize all these things and are living these trends in real time, and B, are going to share a little bit about how their organizations have approached this question of skilling in the age of AI. So Alina and John would love to bring you in now. Thank you so much for joining us. And Alina, first, we'd love to start with you with an intro. Tell us about yourself and your company.
Sure, thanks, Gabby. It's really exciting to be here with you and John. My name's Alina Jesien, and I lead the people team at Ergeon. Our people function was built on Upwork since we started 8 years ago, which today includes 250 staff fully distributed in 35 different countries around the world. And Ergeon started because we wanted to empower folks to have a better experience with outdoor home improvement projects. And so are in the tech and construction space where we've enabled an end-to-end process, which technology allows us for online instant quoting, and we hope help makes the home improvement process more transparent and hassle-free.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you so much for being here, Alina. John, let's hear from you.
Awesome intro, by the way, Alina. Hey, everyone. And hi, Dr. Abby. Hope all is well. Hey, everybody. I'm John D. Saunders. I'm the founder and creative director at 54 Digital. We're focused on branding, web design, and development for forward-thinking companies, especially in the age of AI. And so some of the verticals that we work in are education, wealth management. We work with startups, and we like Alina as well, I have a fully distributed team with members in South America, Africa, Europe, and here in the States, all done through the amazing platform of Upwork. And we really like to look at projects through a diverse lens. And so we have about 15 team members, and we work to really help clients convey and help folks make amazing, profitable, beautiful websites and digital products. So happy to be here and happy to answer any questions that everyone has as well.
Fantastic. As I mentioned, no 2 better people to be having this conversation from each of their individual perspectives. So let's jump into some questions that I have, because One of the things that we've seen in our research is very much that over the past year, AI has gone from something companies are piloting and experimenting with to something that is just a reality, and it's in the everyday workflows that people are performing. So let's talk about what that has meant for skills in your organizations. How has your company started to think about skills differently as you integrate AI? And we'll start with Alina.
Yeah, I think maybe what's interesting about this is we haven't seen some of those foundational skills that drive value for us really much different, right? But I think the way they show up day to day has shifted. So thinking through a few examples on our engineering team, I think those skills are more valuable than ever. Our engineers are more empowered now. We've achieved a 2.5x productivity boost. 87% of our code today is AI generated, and we've also seen a 1.5 feature growth quarter over quarter in terms of what our team's able to produce. But that's only happening because they already have those foundational skills to direct and review AI output, right? You need strong engineers to catch any suboptimal output and to understand how it works within your current architecture. And I think some of the new critical engineering skills is also bleeding a bit into that business side of how do the engineering and tech teams help bridge that gap, help business side also understand how to make use of these technologies. There's sort of two other things that we've identified that I think have really shifted, or things that we're thinking that continue to be important in our org. The second of those is analytics and data literacy. These are always skills that have been in constant demand, and we see that continuing. I think if anything, AI accelerates the analysis of data, but someone still needs to be there to interpret what the output means, maybe make a hard call, use data to make a decision. Because AI can pull the data, but humans need to know what questions to ask and whether the answers that they're getting from some of these technologies are making sense. And then the last point I would point on is just around the skills of operations and process design. For us, our operations headcount has stayed nearly flat while our business has continued to scale. So the skill is not necessarily doing more tasks, but it's designing processes that are AI compatible. I think there's a lot of companies today that are stuck with knowledge in people's heads, which is really hard to then get value from some of these AI tools. And so having the skill and the discipline to move knowledge into structured, queryable systems is really a foundational operations skill that we're seeing now. We've really invested heavily in moving everything into a structured knowledge base, and the ability to document, structure, maintain that institutional knowledge is what makes every other AI tool that we're using effective. So again, we're looking for people who have that discipline to move knowledge out of silos, which is very natural for people to do, into structured systems. And we need people who feel comfortable and will push to do that, which then allows our team to focus more on growth and impact than some of that busy work.
Oh, fantastic answer. And yes, it's sounding like those core skill sets remain important. And that's really similar to a trend that we found in our research that was you may be layering AI on top of existing expertise, but it's existing expertise that provides that foundation. John, are you seeing something similar in your organization? How has your company started to kind of think about skills and repositioning them?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, our agency, we've really focused for the majority of the time we've been in business in creating systems and standard operating procedures in the agency that we work on, whether it's quality assurance, branding, web design, or development. So that's helped us really expedite the process moving into this AI first system of play for our agency. And so one of the things that we do, and one of the ways that we can benefit from these tools, is by creating additional SOPs based on what we're doing in real time. So in one real life example, our quality assurance process might be different, right? We need to review a website, look at titles, look at meta descriptions, and really be able to supply that. What we'll do is we'll record a video, we'll transcribe that, we'll add that into an LLM or any one of the platforms that you can input in, and have it standardize it into a standard operating procedure. And just like Alina said, we have a central knowledge base where anyone on the team can access. And so in one case, we had a quality assurance team member. She was really focused on reviewing websites to make sure everything was working well in the development phase. But now she can, one, move a lot quicker by dropping a lot of these assets and items into an LLM or tool that we've made in the agency. And then now she can work on 2 to 3 to maybe even 4 projects in the course of the time it would take her a week to work on one. And so where it's really helped us is really helping to validate our ideas with less friction. And so we can use this and do this faster with these AI tools. I think there's a misconception in our industry. And the main issue is because when you're in the design and development world, you're seeing on all these social media platforms how our jobs will be gone in 6 months. And there's like this almost like gloom and doom, when in reality, we're really empowering a lot of our team members by being able to scale without having to increase the team member number, but being able to really give our team members leverage by empowering them with these tools. And so I think one last piece to add on there is our designers, for example, that are working on specific projects, they can actually scale up their efforts by utilizing these AI tools because they're tastemakers and because they have expertise in user interface, user experience. It's almost like the AI is super powered with their expertise to do more advanced things that can work a lot quicker than they would, 6 months, a year from now.
Ah, I love that. And that's certainly a better story than the doom and gloom that does exist across jobs. It is a big part of the reason we
Of
wanted to do
course.
our in-demand skills research. So, John, are you seeing any emerging new skills that your business needs that maybe 3, 4 years ago you wouldn't even have thought about?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we've seen, and we've seen this at a larger scale, especially with some of our clients, is something like an AI brand companion. So let's say we go through a discovery with a client. This is on the design side. Let's say we're doing a brand project and a website. We go through the brand discovery. They answer all these questions. We create this beautiful brand. They have an overall voice. We have their ICP, all of the information about their brand and company that we followed through on the process. What we do is we create a document that they can leverage later on as a brand companion to be able to create ads, to create additional content, to write copy that's consistent with the content and things that we've created in this package. And so what it's done is it's one, being able to collaborate with clients on a human level to finally create a brand package that they love, but then utilizing that to go ahead and feed these AI platforms where they can further that success without us or by themselves in their marketing strategy and efforts moving forward. And so it's allowed us to really, one, empower our customers and our clients to push forward and move forward themselves as well. And then being able to use our expertise to get them there to bridge that gap.
Oh, I love that. Alina, anything to add there? Are there skills that you've realized are advantageous in your business that weren't even on your radar 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think it'd be unfair to say not on my radar, but we're definitely shifting in when we're bringing new folks into the organization. I think there's a new emphasis on some of those skills you were mentioning early in terms of the relationship skills. Are people proactive? Do they have resiliency to change? Critical thinking, natural curiosity. So, for example, on our sales team, the relationship building and judgment have become even more important because AI can give you the information, but it doesn't always have all of the context to be able to recognize when something isn't correct or something needs to be nudged in a different direction. Today, we're actively reshaping a lot of our team lead roles. AI is handling a lot of the initial training delivery, the ongoing Q&A, deep quality audits, pipeline review, data preparation. And these are things that the team leads before were spending a lot of time on. So today, when we're looking at filling those roles, it's really looking at allowing people managers to operate at a more senior level with a wider span of control and focusing on what only today humans can do, right? So motivational coaching, supporting people through personal challenges, having performance conversations, really leaning into and looking for those as a skill set that we're emphasizing more than we have in the past. And then the last one I'll just touch on, I think, is really looking for people who are naturally very proactive because this is going to continue happening and technology is creating space for all of us, both empowering us, but also giving us extra space. And I think it's the most proactive people who can really take advantage of that and say, okay, I have some extra time in my week today. What am I going to do with that extra time to have a bigger impact than what I do today, as opposed to, filling that time with busy work?
Oh, great point, and a great segue to my next question for you, Alina, which is, you spoke a little bit about how you're rethinking hiring and who you're bringing into the organization. How about existing employees and workers? How has AI kind of changed or shaped the expectations of them?
Yeah, I think on the expectation front, where we'd previously seen where we had larger teams or more full-time staff, a lot of that has been specifically skilled so people are able to access more and sort of change that, right? I know we've talked a little bit about some of the fractional work. We do have expectations that people who are coming in with a specific expertise, also feel very comfortable using AI tools. So to give you an example, we work on Upwork with a videographer who's amazing, but we also decided to work with him because he has really embraced a lot of these tools and we have that as an expectation, right? He stays very up to date with everything that's coming out every week, and that's allowed him to work across sound, image, illustration, motion, and what he's able to produce for us in terms of that output and the turnaround that he can leverage with tools is incredible. And he works for us 15 hours a week. He has several other clients, and I think that works really well for him. A second example where, again, we have sort of an expectation when we're bringing folks into the company around having that AI skill, or at least being very open and to have that curiosity to try new things that are becoming available, is we offer English classes to all of our staff. We're fully distributed across a lot of different countries, so we offer English classes to for people to take during work time as our common language at the company. And so previously, this was something where we had someone who was working very full time, running multiple levels of English classes, building the curriculum, administering the tests. And that took a lot of time and a lot of resources dedicated to that. Whereas today, we have someone who is working part time. She's a fantastic teacher. That is her superpower. But she uses a lot of AI tool so that she's allowed to spend those resources in that in-person live time in the conversation clubs, which people really love. But she's been able to also develop a massive amount of self-led training on the side that people can take advantage of. And she's doing that because she's building the curriculum, the materials, the courses with some of the technology available today. So I think to be succinct, we are absolutely looking for people to come in who feel comfortable with interacting with tools, not only because it will empower them, but also because we use those tools internally, and people coming in who feel comfortable working with LLMs and some of the other technologies will just, do better at our company.
Oh, that is a fantastic example of how roles are being reshaped, but not replaced, right? You're not automating those English classes, but you are furthering the reach and capabilities of the people administering them. That's fantastic. John, how about you at 54 Digital? How has AI expanded or reshaped expectations for certain roles?
Yeah, it's really helped us. For me, it's always been like speed over headcount. I feel like if we can be efficient, if we can collaborate with our clients and provide them with an amazing service, I don't think the headcount necessarily matters to them as long as it's being done efficiently. And so what we have in our agency is one, with AI, we're able to empower our team members to do more, right? And so what does that example look like? For a designer, that might look like I need to go and do a competitive analysis. Before, it might take them 5 to 6 hours to really review all these websites. Now they can run a tool that can scrape multiple websites and give them the top level information and details that they might need specifically to make an informed decision on the design changes and updates that they want to do. So because that time is saved, they can spend more time in the canvas designing, using their expertise to really create something beautiful and functional for an end client. And so for me, it really, especially with Upwork, finding those people is a lot easier, especially with the tools and attributes and tags for finding them in the platform. And so for us, we really look for folks that are multi-hyphenated, that have design skills, but they can also develop. Because AI has empowered us so much, it's a lot easier to be able to design the user interface for an app and then go ahead and develop that in a prototype or an MVP pretty easily and efficiently through a lot of these newer tools. So by hiring and working with folks folks that are multi-hyphenated that don't necessarily have to spend 25, 30 hours on one project. They can allocate less time, do more, and create really functional, really great functional products that work efficiently and well in this modern space. And so I'm always looking at the latest tools. I'm always looking at the latest collaborations and things that we can make. And I also lean into designers and developers on what they think are the emerging tools and things that we should be checking out. So anytime something comes out, we're always have a specific budget and allocation to, hey, this is for training, this is for education, this is for tools that you need. So we can always be testing and iterating those items. And so once it does reach a state where we understand it, it's efficient, we've incorporated it into our 5-step process, then we can add it to the knowledge base and continue to add additional value for team members internally that are front facing to the client so we can execute at a high level for our customers.
The multi-hyphenate talent. I love that and may need to start using it because I think it very well exemplifies what we're talking about here.
Yes. Yeah. I feel like everyone is ultimately going to have to be a little bit of that, right? I don't know if we're moving toward a gig economy, but I truly feel like a lot of folks are going to be working in that way where they're going to be spending 10 hours at this company, 10 hours at this company, maybe working on their own internal projects, but these tools definitely empower us to do that.
Well, and let's talk about that. That's exactly where I'd love to go next because 77% of business leaders told us that they're seeing AI accelerate their need for specialized fractional talent. And so we've been tracking at the Upwork Research Institute for a long time kind of the shifts in work models and how the traditional full-time employment model, which is still, predominantly how people work,
Of
is
course.
not working in an AI world for a variety of reasons. It's not working for workers and it's not working for business leaders. And so we are seeing, business leaders starting to think differently. John, how are you thinking about full-time hiring versus freelance or fractional hiring when new skills are required, especially amid AI integration?
Oh, great question. I think that a lot of folks are looking for like tastemakers and experts in AI. And I think there's a few ways you can approach it. One, I think that there is going to be a big space for consultancy for companies or individuals that have expertise in, let's say, AI agents to come in and say, hey, I'll come into your company, I'll teach your staff, your company how to use this. We'll build out your own individual LLM model or do something in regards to creating something specific to your company. So I think specifically on Upwork, I think there's going to be a huge uptick in just consultants and folks that have the expertise to be able to add a specific skill set in AI to a company's bottom line. And then the second piece, I think, is really just folks taking their skills and saying, hey, how can I make this more efficient? What can I do to incorporate AI tools and functionality into what I do already? So one case in point that I've seen is there are a ton of website platforms out there, WordPress, Webflow, all these other ones, right? What I've seen a lot of designers do now is taking their design expertise, plugging that into an online tool, and then creating an output for a live website and saying, hey, we designed this, but then we also developed it here so we can pass this code onto your developers. And that just adds another skill set for them that they can then use as leverage to get more jobs, to collaborate with more companies, and essentially work a little bit less because they don't have to allocate as much time, but they can still leverage the effort that they've accumulated over all this time, their expertise, their taste make ability to really leverage that and become a power player on the platform.
Oh, fantastic. Now, Alina, you mentioned that Ergeon has sort of been an Upwork first company always, so you may have a strong perspective on this, but how are you thinking of full-time versus freelance or fractional hiring in the age of AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for us, we today are still really investing also in, upskilling the team that we have because we're noticing that there's a lot of shifts happening with this technology. But I do think bringing in folks with specific expertise who are experts in certain areas, legal or something specific that you're dealing with, again, using some of those examples of folks coming in that are AI empowered can have a massive effect on that. And so I think there's a lot of places where bringing in folks for just that fractional work, for work that used to take a full team or someone someone that's full time, we're just going to see that more and more. I was actually talking to another people leader this morning, and she was talking about the same thing where previously these were full time roles, and now it allows people a bit more flexibility to be able to come in and do work for multiple clients because they're just that much more empowered and be able to leverage these tools when they do that. So I think we're just going to see a lot more of that going forward.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have an example for us of how you've leveraged a freelancer as you've, considered a skill gap in your organization
Yeah,
or
I
maybe
think, the English teacher and the videographer were two examples I gave previously. We've also done this at the more senior level. We have had some periods of time where some of our executives were pulled in a lot of directions, had very heavy travel, and we were able to bring in some more senior folks on sort of a fractional level, which is something we have not done before. And I think part of that was how do you get someone up to speed with the context they need to be able to be effective at a senior level? But I think with the technology that's today, we're able to bring in folks that can kind of fill that stopgap when we have those really high seasons or just need someone to come in on a special project because they can leverage those tools and just get up to speed on company context and what's going on so much faster than the onboarding would have taken before.
we may need a separate webinar on that topic because that is a great one and a shift that we're seeing quite a few organizations making as well. John, any examples you can give us of how your company has leveraged a freelancer to maybe fill a role or a skill gap that might otherwise have been difficult to fill?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. One case in point was our QA specialist, shout out Pat. She started again to bring her up again. She started really just focusing on like more so data entry, content and updates to the websites that we're working on, and then she kind of segued into doing quality assurance, making sure all the links, everything works properly before a project goes live. And she started to come up with specific tools and attributes on what to do. So she kind of came in at the sitemap part or of the process and was like, "Hey, I think we can add this, or I think we can change this, or I think we can templatize this," which I thought was really important and crucial to our growth. Because then once we did that, that became a part of our process, and then she made that part of our specific GPT for that project. So anytime we do that, anytime we work on that project, we have that template to work from. And it does a lot of things. One, it's helped us mitigate mistakes and issues at the agency level, right? Because we're working through this process that she's iterated. It's easy to kind of get lost if you don't have step-by-step directions on how to do these things. And so by her executing that, she started in data entry, moved into QA specialist, and now she leads that department with a team with 2 to 3 team members with her being able to execute that at a high level. And it really started as a part-time position on Upwork that moved into a full-time position that's really helped us expedite our processes and systems really well.
Fantastic. Alina and John, thank you so much. I don't
Of
want to be the
course.
one asking all the questions, although we've learned some fantastic things. We'd love to hear from you in the audience and what questions you have for our panelists. We're going to take a quick 15-second break. Please think up some questions, put them in the QA, and we'll get the discussion going. All right, and we're back. Some of the questions that we have received from you both live today and when you registered for this webinar are going to shape the next 15 minutes or so. Let's start with a pretty interesting one. How should small businesses balance ready now proficiency versus coachable skills and learning mindset when hiring in the age of AI? And Alina, we'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. I do think that there is a balance here, right? I think where we have actually seen both of these. I think, for example, when we hire new sales folks, we have built internal tools that use active agents and for people to be able to interact with workflow, to be able to see customer information, they do have to feel comfortable to work with LLMs and those types of tools. So for those roles specifically, knowing that someone is going to come in and interact with those tools, that is something that we're actively looking for in our hiring process. That being said, for roles that are a bit more open-ended, especially on our tech side, we have been a bit more flexible with that because what we have found is if we bring in folks who maybe haven't had the chance to tinker a ton or just have done it on their own, especially, that's something we look for. People who come from an academic background, who sort of have a research mindset, who are incredibly curious. We've brought them in to solve problems where we don't have the tool yet to be able to solve that problem, or we haven't built the agent or haven't worked with AI a lot on that problem yet. And we found folks that who are proactive and curious can come in and solve those problems. So I think it sort of depends on if you're bringing someone into something already established. I would definitely look for then that someone has had experience working with those tools. But if you're looking to build something, I would look more for sort of the informal experience. And a lot of the questions we just ask is, what have you played with and built on your own time? And I think that can be very telling.
Oh, that is a great answer. John, what skill gaps do you think are holding small to medium-sized businesses back the most? Is it technical literacy? Is it workflow design? Is it change management? Where do you really see the challenge and the squeeze?
Ooh, great question. Um, I think it starts with just overall company structure first. Because a lot of times folks are just asking the wrong questions. They might have messy systems internally where things are not super organized. And I think it really comes down to, and this is something that I've said for the longest, is really having systems and documented workflows that you can leverage as these AI tools emerge and grow. I think companies that really take the time to say, okay, here is a step-by-step process on how to do, let's say it's a window cleaning company or a plumbing company, right? That they have literally just a checklist of, hey, here's what we do from A to Z once we arrive in someone's house. These are all of the things that we need to complete a job of a specific type. And it doesn't have to be like super beautiful and organized in some nice structure. It can literally be sheets of paper that you scan and put on the computer and say, hey, chat or whatever you use, help me organize this into a thoughtful process that I can use from going job to job. So I think it really starts at just becoming a company that documents all of your processes. I like to think of it as any company that I start, ultimately, I want to be able to sell it and live on a yacht and retire, right? So I need to organize and make sure everything is in order before I even use these tools. Because if you're doing that already and then you bring in an AI tool or an LLM or AI agents or whichever platform you're using, it's just going to help you exponentially grow that thing out of control. And so I think AI just rewards organized business, and then it'll really expose disorganized ones because ultimately you're going to have to get organized before you even start to leverage these tools, but they can help you do it. And it's really easy to do that nowadays with the power of these tools, like the newest models that have come out in the last few weeks that are just insane.
Oh, that's such a great answer, because the fact that they will expose a disorganized, workflow organization structure, I think is very true. You've also revealed all of our secret dream, which is to retire on a yacht. But there is another thing, that I think AI can potentially expose, and that's data privacy and security risks. So how
Mm.
are small firms successfully using AI internally while minimizing those risks? What is your experience in that been, John?
Ooh, great question. Great question. So man, a few ways. So I think, and you see this in a lot of bigger corporations, like they're not really allowed to use a lot of these tools because you're putting in financial data, competitive analysis, workflow documentation. Some of that isn't allowed in some ways. And so I think the best way to look at it is to treat AI as almost like a junior assistant. It can help with research, structuring ideas. You can even use it for competitive analysis, some documentation, but anything that's restricted, I wouldn't advise using it in the context of making decisions ultimately. And so we avoid uploading any confidential information. Anything that we upload is all public data. So if it's a competitive analysis, it might be a sitemap of a public website, right? Or it might be something that they've already seen that anyone on the internet can scrape and look at through HTML or code. And so I think we need to really think about training our team on judgment and knowing that everything can't go into a prompt. Just because it can do it doesn't mean we have to, and we really have to set those restrictions and limitations early on. Also, last caveat I'll add is if you're going to be doing like AI agents and using tools like OpenClaw for data, you definitely want to make sure that you use like a dedicated machine that's not your main machine that has access to all of your logins and access to passwords. But that's a whole different thing. I'm rambling a bit, but ultimately, yes, just making sure you're making those decisions before you jump in head first.
Also a topic for a future webinar, I think.
Yeah.
Alina, do you have anything to add on the minimizing the data privacy and security risks?
Yeah, I think not to be sort of to push back here, but I do also think it's important to recognize that for a lot of organizations, this is a huge blocker in that people are so risk averse that they're scaring their staff to be very, very careful when you use AI. And I'm not saying you shouldn't educate your staff on what to use and how to use it and when to use it. But I think once you've done that, there is sort of a happy middle of absolutely protecting customer data, anything like that. But as John said, to help people feel comfortable, when people were saying, well, I want to give, the LLM or whatever it was context about our company, but I'm afraid to do that. And I said, just ask it to research our company. It will find everything it can. We put together a huge PDF of everything that was public knowledge about our company. And for context, people just feed that in to an LLM when they're working on it, and they feel comfortable because it's, sort of something that the company has approved. But I think in general, we have tried to be yeah, a little bit flexible there in not wanting to stifle that creativity of people being so afraid. We have one internal system that we use. We ask everyone to use that because it's already connected to all of our company information and to not use external systems. I think we're coming to a convergent point where a lot of the tools available to us at certain price points are going to have the same capabilities, and it doesn't make too much difference which of these large models you're using. And so picking one and sticking to that with your company and giving people guidance, I think is important.
Fantastic. Alina, you
Agreed.
are at the forefront of growing people's careers. What digital skills would you say help mid-level professionals move from, task executor to strategic advisor?
Yeah, great question. I think all of us at any level are kind of asking these questions ourselves. I think for me, there is so much to stay on top of and things are happening so fast. I think for me, some of the biggest unlock just in the last couple months is moving towards not thinking about using AI and LLMs as sort of just a small back and forth, but really trying to push myself to use it as a strategic partner, work on my context engineering. But not only that, I think the step after that is just building. It's been shocking to me. I use Claude Code in my daily work. I am not a particularly technical person, and it is shocking to me that I was able to set that up, a process that I would have had to probably ping someone on our data and engineering team, I don't know, 5 times an hour while I'm trying to set this up. I was able to just interact with the model. And when something went wrong, it's almost a new mindset skill to say, if I don't know how to do something, there is a infinitely patient tool that is going to walk me through step by step. I just have to keep asking questions. And I think that's a mindset shift that all of us need to get into. And not only that, kind of using that to then not just be having conversations, but actually get into the point where you're building something. So if you haven't built something yet with some of these tools, I would say that is something to take a Sunday and just play, and that can unlock, a lot of different ideas and a lot of creativity from people.
Really great answer. John, what is the most important AI skill that businesses or freelancers should be learning to stay competitive right now? What is going to be future proof in your view?
Yeah, I think the best way to answer this. Okay, so I have an example.
Yeah.
Of course, we work with some awesome clients, but my mom is starting a Substack, so I'm helping her with her setup, like her LLM to answer specific questions and items. And she wrote a book, and so we have her book incorporated in there. We have directions and instructions to give to the LLM. And so I think the biggest thing and what I'm trying to get to is really just systems thinking, how you think about the questions that you ask when you're adding information into an LLM or vibe coding. It's really going to come down to, can you design a process that the AI can plug into? I think the people that understand systems and how to ask the right questions are really going to benefit. And so my mom was like, I'm starting this Substack, what do I write about? And that's what she puts into the prompt, right? And I say, well, let's preface that by giving it information about your book, your background, who you are, where you've been, where you are today. Let's also add some conversation starters so we can see if it's in line with what you're looking to provide and convey to your audience. And then we can say things like, hey, here's some of her background. She's from this island, she's done this, she's done that. And so now it's incorporated all this information where now when she asks it a question, it's going to give her things specific to her as an individual. And I think that's when it's going to come down to. And I think it sounds a lot easier for us and Alina, you as well. But I think when we think outside, the normal, like, I guess, consumer or person using these tools is really using it as a search engine, right? They're not leveraging it as like almost like a second brain where you can ask it these questions and really get some really, really great content and information out of it. So I think it really comes down to being a person that can really think in terms of these systems, and then being able to interpret that data and make the right decisions on the content and information you're supplying these tools.
Systems thinking is, I think, one of the best answers I've ever heard to that question. And the
Oh,
next question I think I see in the chat kind of alluding to, how do we work that into our learning and development systems? How do we develop people for systems thinking? And Alina, will ask you first from the HR perspective.
Yeah, sure. To be honest, I'm not sure we've figured out how to do this best in class yet. What we have tried is that we ran an AI boot camp that was 12 weeks at our company, and it was, small micro learning doses where you had to sort of complete an assignment at the end of the week after getting some context. And we really started from zero, right? It was just sort of learning what is an LLM, how, what's best class prompting, how do you, go through and work through all the way up to some automations of workflows, some building of agents was sort of the last couple lessons of that. Of course, we started with safety and security the very beginning, so people felt comfortable. But I think bringing at least where we were all using the same vocabulary, we were all had the same base from where we could, on the business side, talk about how to use these tools. We asked that everyone go through that. I think another thing that I hear a lot that, again, we are also just struggling with as a startup is it takes time to just play with these tools, right? It's not something you can take a class, okay, I got it, now I know how to use it. You just have to get in the habit of having it constantly open on your computer, about playing, about asking a ton of dumb questions, about going back and forth, figuring things out yourself. And that is something that takes time. But I think that investment, you can really start to see the return on that investment. But it's that idea of I need to spend 4 hours in the afternoon today, but over time, this is just going to continue to level up myself, my department. So I think a lot of companies and people struggle with how do you find those focus blocks and being really, I just have to literally block it out on my calendar and say no meetings. I'm playing with AI for these 2 hours. And do I do it every single time? No, but it does happen occasionally. And that's when I really find sort of things that are unlocked for me personally and then that I can then pass on to my team.
Right. So some of it by necessity is self-development. It's not all on the organization. John, to close this out, anything you've learned about, learning and development when it comes to the age of AI?
learning and development in the age of AI. Um, it's really been eye-opening, mainly because 10 years ago, you're like, okay, I want to build a tool. Oh, what am I going to need? Okay, I'll need to do this in React. I'll need JavaScript. I'll need to write the HTML, CSS. Now it's like, it's almost like analysis paralysis now because you can basically build anything you want now by asking a prompt. And I'm not even joking. Like I built a couple Chrome extensions in a couple days. We built out huge web apps in a week. Like it's to the point where you have to think, okay, where and what do we need to focus on to make sure we're ahead of the curve with this? Because I honestly don't know. So, um, and to go back to your question, Dr. Gabby, I'm sorry. I think mainly it's just keeping a finger on the pulse of what's going on a daily basis in this space. And like Alina said, having time to tinker, play around, because it's not like you can go and take a course on this. If you take a course, the next day a new model comes out and it's like everything is defunct and you have to learn everything over. So it's really just having this stuff up, playing around, seeing what things you can change and update. One thing that we do is we try to, anytime we do something that works, we document it and then we share with the team and we can share it that way. And so that's really helped us say, okay, well, this is really cool. We can leverage this in our process. But ultimately, yeah, I don't have a direct answer, but I think just keeping a finger on the pulse is crucial to this time, day and age right now.
I think that is more than fair and fantastic answer. We are going to wrap up, but thank you so much to all of you for participating. I think if I could
Likewise.
sum everything up, it would be that core skills remain essential, that AI is a reality and it's being integrated into work, but that human expertise continues to drive impact. Now, for those of you that have joined our webinars before, you know that we wrap up with one bold action related to the topic area. So each of us on the panel are going to share one bold action that we plan on undertaking for 2026. Please join us and drop your bold action in the chat. If you are watching the replay on LinkedIn or on YouTube, drop it in the comments. We want to hear from you. I'll go first. My bold action is that I'm going to take a look at my team. I'm going to identify one workflow where we could really integrate AI, and I'm going to document the human skills that really elevate that outcome. And that is my plan between now and the end of 2026. Alina, how about you? What is your bold action?
Yeah, I think for me, bold action would be zero engineer dependency for non-engineering work, right? So after I've started using Claude Code and able to solve some things that maybe I would have needed an engineer for, the bold action is how do we get the rest of the business there too, right? Finance, operations, talent acquisition, legal. Every team should be able to query their own data, update their own documentation. So, really breaking the dependency in that chain, because I think that's a huge unlock for any business side department.
That's great. And that's bold. John, one bold action.
Yes, yes, we're implementing an AI augmented quality architecture layer across every project. So we want to be able to really utilize AI and efficient tools to help our clients just do great things.
Oh, I've got to up my boldness, I think. Well, thank you so much, Alina and John, for joining us and sharing
Oh,
your
thank you
expertise
all.
and your experiences. Thanks to all of you who joined us today. Please check out the In-Demand Skills 2026 research report if you'd like to read more about the skill demand that we're tracking on the Upwork platform. And thank you so much and have a great week.
Thank you all. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.